Recording? Awesome. So, yesterday, everybody, we learned how to run code, lines of code more than once. And the way we did it was with the keyword for, F-O-R, and then in brackets, we would put some conditions that need to be met in order to get this, whatever block of code we put into these curly braces to repeat itself. And we started really simply by getting it to say a word or something like that. Hello, right? Okay. So the three things that a for loop needed were a variable. I almost always, if I can, make mine the letter I. It's just a short variable. I stands for index, which is often what you're indexing through lists of numbers or something like that. So I usually choose I. It only gets created inside of the for loop and will only work inside of the curly braces. You cannot use I later on. The integer that you've created in here, you cannot use it later on and print it out or do anything with it. It gets lost after it's used in the for loop. Okay. The second thing you need is a condition that needs to be met for the loop to run. So we played around with all kinds of different numbers yesterday. This one will go to 100,000. And then you increment I as well to tell it that each time it goes through this loop of code, it will increase by one number or two or three or whatever you feel like. Okay? Here's something interesting you could do. You could go char and then hit I if you really wanted the matrix screen. Because remember, integers and characters can be changed back and forth between one another. Let's see what this looks like. Just going to print all those ASCII table numbers over and over and over again.
Why didn't you put and also?
Because I just want them to be right beside each other. So kind of fill up the screen. See what happens here. Ah, there you go. It's even making a sound. So that's kind of freaky. Cool though, eh?
What would happen?
We'll put them all in a one long line. And line just says move to the next line, right? So one of those characters is telling the computer to play like an internal sound or something. Let's get rid of, it's bizarre. Look at that.
So what are the quotations you did?
What do you mean, what are the quotations do?
You did like those two triangles that you put like quotations in there?
Yeah.
What does this do like?
What do you think? What do you think, Omar? Guess.
Just tell it to put that in there?
No. Put the space in between each letter. Yep. Right? Doesn't really matter in this instance, but man, that's weird. That's a very annoying sound. So that was one way to do a loop, okay? And the other way to do a loop in C++ is it's called a conditional loop. It's a little bit different. Conditional loop, it's the word while, and this one's more like an if statement than the for loop. It will run this code as long as whatever is inside of these brackets is true. So if you put the word true, it will run this loop forever. Okay? That condition is always being met. It's just constantly saying hello. If you put the word false in here, it will not run at all. Just quits my program. Okay. If I put something as simple as a statement that would be true, like is 7 greater than 5 or 6, it will always run that loop. It could be important in a game, right? Your game is trying to run itself 60 times a second in some sort of loop. And you could have just kind of like a loop in here like this, and then all of your code would be inside of this while loop, constantly running. And we'll see how that works probably in lab 11, I believe. Okay, we start getting some graphics going. Okay, so what's the use of this? Well, the use of it is you really want. I don't use while loops a lot. I think for loops are much more powerful because they keep track of what part of the loop you're on with the numbers, right? But I could just as easily do it with a while loop. Make an integer. Set it equal to 0 outside of the while loop, and then say while I is less than 10, say hello. Now this will run forever because I is not changing anywhere, and so I is always less than 10. However, if I increment I inside of my while loop, then it will only run 10 times because I will go up by 1 each time. Let's stop it and look at it in the watches window here. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to stop my program and step through it a line at a time, and we'll see what happens here. I don't know why that's doing that, but okay. Will my debug even work? No. I was experimenting with a newer version of code blocks.
You have to put the I++ in the curly bracket. You gotta put it above the while.
No, you do not, because the while loop is what's actually making it count. Okay.
But in the for loop, you put the I++ inside the bracket.
Yes, you do. Yeah. While loop only takes one thing in the brackets, a condition. For loop takes 3 things. It takes you making the integer. It takes you making the variable, then the condition, and then the increment. The while loop only ever takes the condition. So I mean, it's very similar to a for loop, which is why you can kind of interchange the two. You can make anything with a for loop. You could do it with a while loop, and vice versa. I just think the for loop's a little more convenient. You don't. You just kind of do it all in the one bracket, and then you don't have your code spaced out there. Let's run it and see. It says hello. Well, let's write the letter I on the screen, or the variable I on the screen, and we'll put our end line so that we space them out. It should count from 0 to 9, right? There we go. Okay. So very, very similar type of loop, but you could put your condition in there. You could put the for loop. Oftentimes, you always make a variable, you always set a condition, and you always increment it. But here may not necessarily be the case. Let's do an example where we allow someone to type in their name, and we keep asking their name until they type in the name we're looking for. So I'm going to type string name, for instance, okay? I'm going to send them a message that says enter your name, okay? Now, I'm going to run the code below until the person types in the name I'm looking for. So I'm going to say while name not equals, okay, that's how you do not equals in C++, exclamation point. And I'm just going to pick a name like France, okay? Now, well, let's see what happens here. Give me a sec, I just want to see why my debug doesn't work. It was working yesterday fine. I think I know why, but I don't feel like changing it right now. Let me just open my old school code block. Let's continue on our journey. Okay, so sorry about that. Here we go. Conditional loop. Doesn't have to have integers, doesn't have to count, doesn't have to do anything. Can just be something that loops over and over again until the condition is met. Here's my classic example where you type a name in, it checks to see if you've typed in the word Franz. If you haven't, okay, then it's going to say, I don't know you. Type in your name. Okay. Now, then I'm going to put a CIN and I'm going to put in name. And it's just going to keep going through this code and keep rewriting it the whole time as long as name does not equal Franz. So let's run it and see what happens. And hopefully we can watch the variables as it happens. So I'm going to go to watches here. Right now name is empty. Okay. Now the one thing I forgot is to initially ask them to type in a name before the loop as well. I can see that that's already going to be a mistake. So yes, I'm going to give them a prompt to type in a name. They're going to type in a name, and then my while loop is going to check. Okay. So now let's run it. Okay. It's going to run. It's going to ask a name. I'll type Ian. Oh, I liked it when it was blue and big letters.
Black letter.
Where's the colors again? I like this. Boom. There we go. I don't believe it changed the color like I told it to. Okay, that's okay. Ian. Okay, I hit enter. My program stops on this yellow line, and it's going to check. So let's look at my variable. It does say Ian there. Okay. And if name does not equal Franz, then it's going to run through here, right? That is true. My name does not equal Franz. So this statement is true. It's going to run through this loop. And it's going to write the message, I don't know you. And then it's going to ask them to type in their name again. So it says, I don't know you, type in your name. How about Darius? Enter. Now, what's my code going to do? It's going to go back, it's going to loop back around and check to see if this statement is true. Is this statement true? Does the name not equal Franz? That is true. It equals Darius. So then it's going to go through again and say, I don't know you. Type in your name. And it's just going to keep doing it eventually till I type in Franz. Okay? Now it's going to see that this is false. The name does not equal Franz is false. It actually does equal Franz. So now it's going to stop completing any of the code inside of those curly brackets and just going to jump out of my program. Boom. And it's going to go hit the return 0 and it's going to be done. So what I could maybe do out here is say something like, hello, Franz, because I will know if my while loop is exited and I am on this line of code, that eventually that person would have had to type the name Franz to stop this loop from running. So that's how a conditional loop works. It doesn't necessarily have to count or do anything like that. It can just constantly check something as you're typing it in. Perhaps this would be good in a password protected program where, you say type in your password, and then you basically run this while loop and say, run it as long as your password is false. Keep asking them to type in their password. As soon as they actually get the right password, now the while loop's done and you can continue on your journey with your program. So let me run that. Laurent, did you have a question about this?
Yes.
What is it?
Why do you have an exclamation mark before the
That stands for not equals in C++. Stands for not equals, okay? Yeah. And so let's run it and see if he'll say hello, Franz. And I'm not going to run it with the debugger just because we've already kind of seen how it works step by step, but I'll enter in a name.
Oh, Mr. Christina.
Yeah?
It's still blue. The one you tried to double backslash is still blue, so it means that it would still.
I don't know. It's like a weird color. You know, it has to do with this exclamation point, I bet. See that?
Mr. Rizinga?
Yeah?
Can we use for and else statements together or no?
No.
But if we want
Else only works with if.
if we want to do 2 for statements, or can we do that or no?
Yeah, you can do for loops inside of for loops, and kind of gets messy though. Let's run this. Let me just set the properties on this one too. Why isn't it updating? I told it to do the blue screen, yes, and I wanted the big font. Did I not? Now it's not behaving. Let's run that again. There we go. Enter your name. Letter A. I don't know you. Type in your name. B. I don't know you. Type in your name. C. I don't know you. Type in your name. E. I don't know you. Type in your name. I, G, H, I, A, A, L, M, N, O, P, C, D, E, S, D, D, B, G, G. Franz. What do you think's gonna happen?
It'll destroy it.
It'll quit the loop and say what? Let's look. It's just going around in circles here. It's stuck in this infinite loop. What happens if I type Franz? The loop is done. Goes here. This computer knows me, but it only knows me if my name is Franz. Hello, Franz. Yeah. That is how a conditional loop works. Not as useful as a for loop in my opinion, especially in this context of this class, but we will use it. Let's watch this. Create new program, okay? We're going to do this in lab 11, but I'll show you right now. If you go to SFML project here, that is a graphics project. Hit go. I'll give it a name, Dana. Okay. Now, I'm going to open the main for that program. It's quite short. It is about 28 lines. Okay. We'll learn about what all this stuff does. If I run it right now, you'll see that it probably just draws like a little green. Is it going to run? Yeah. Look, it draws a green circle on the screen. Ooh. That's amazing. And look at this inside. Oh, look at this. I have 2 while loops in my graphics program. The first one is a while loop that's checking if your window is open and you're not pressing a keyboard button called escape. Okay? The second while loop inside of the main while loop, and let's see what it writes beside. It's called the main game loop. Exit if someone closes the window. Sure. And then there's a second loop here, and it's also a while loop. Loop that checks for events. So we'll learn a little bit about that. Mostly we just leave that alone, but events in graphics happen when you move your mouse or your keyboard or you touch something inside of your graphical window. That's considered an event. This is an event. Stretching this window, that's considered an event to this program. Minimizing, maximizing, these are all events that happen, and you don't really often need to check if events are happening. Sometimes you do. For the most part, we just kind of leave this box on its own and we start moving this image around. Okay? So we'll learn that you can take your image, like shape, it's called shape, and move it, and do all kinds of stuff. That's lab 11, so stay tuned for that. We'll move it 1 pixel down and 1 pixel over every frame. It's running 60 times a second, this loop, so we should see that moving. Oh, wow. Okay. That's where we're headed. Bye. The sun is setting. Okay. There you go. We could change the color to blue. See if it's a blue setting sun. Come back. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So, while loops, we will see them, especially when we get to graphics, but they just kind of sit there and run our program for us. And that's all I got to say about that. Okay?